Amazing. Awesome. So we are live now. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight. If you haven't muted yet, please mute, and I will get started. Shalom. Thank you for joining us here tonight to discuss the topic of how to maximize time with your kids. For those who don't already know me, my name is Ali Wiener Avraham. I am the Jewish Education and Early Childhood Education Coordinator at the JCC of the Lehigh Valley in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I myself am a parent of 2 young children and wear plenty of hats in our community as a teacher, educator, and support for our teachers and parents within our community. I am super excited for tonight's topic because who doesn't want to maximize their time with their children? And now I would like to introduce you to Chelsea Bush. Please introduce yourself and tell us how you got into this topic and how you got into, tell us about your background. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Ali, thank you so much. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to present to you guys tonight. My name is Chelsea Bush. I am currently a graduate student at Lehigh University. I'm in their school psychology doctoral program in a pediatric psychology track. So I'm currently completing my psychology residency in pediatric psychology at Nemours AI DuPont Hospital for Children in Delaware. What that means basically is that I will graduate at the end of this year and I will be a doctoral level psychologist. My background is a combination of pediatric psychology and school psychology. So at the end of this year, I'll be qualified to provide services both in school settings and hospital settings. Hospital settings is where I currently am right now. My specialty area is early childhood and consultation with parents, particularly around early childhood behavioral concerns, things like sleep concerns, feeding concerns, toileting concerns, and then some of your run-of-the-mill behavioral things, some early childhood anxiety, those types of things. So that's sort of my background, and I thought this would be a nice topic. I know I myself am a mother of 2 young children. I have a 5-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter. I'm working, and especially in COVID times, I think finding the time to really enjoy your kids and maximize the time with your kids can be especially challenging, particularly when you yourself might be feeling super tapped out. And so I thought that I would introduce this strategy tonight because it's literally a 5 to 10 minute sort of intervention that really has such wonderful benefits that I feel like everyone should know about it. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity to present tonight. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Okay, so we are going to talk about how to maximize time with your kids. So the way I like to structure my presentations, I like to sort of give you an agenda, give you an overview of what we're going to do tonight, what I'm going to talk with you about. I know that everyone's sort of muted. Some people are on Facebook, some people are on Zoom. My hope is for this to be sort of interactive. It's a little bit hard, I guess, over Zoom, where I guess sort of naturally I'm just kind of talking at you. But if you have any questions or comments or concerns or anything like that, I really encourage you to stop me. My hope is that this can be a little bit more interactive and not just me talking at you. So for tonight, the way that this presentation is going to work, I'm going to introduce this strategy. It's called child-directed interaction. At Nemours, when we teach this to families, we also call this special time. And so if you hear me say child-directed interaction, CDI, special time, all of those things are the same thing. I'm just talking about this therapeutic type of play. I'm going to talk through why should we do CDI with our kids, teach you the rules of CDI. It's pretty concrete and pretty specific. I'm going to demonstrate CDI with you, CDI for you with my own child. I originally was going to try and bring my 5-year-old in to sort of show you a live demonstration, but at the suggestion of some very smart friends of mine, I decided to record a video just in case we get to 8:30, 9 o'clock and he's not feeling super cooperative. So I'll show you a video where I can sort of talk through some of the things that I'm doing with him. And then any questions, comments, and concerns, if you don't, have an opportunity to stop me in the middle, we'll definitely address it at the end. Okay. So this is something I like to do in my presentations. Also, I like to give you sort of like the take-home messages. If you take nothing else out of this presentation, these are the few things I'd like you to remember. I'll sort of reiterate these at the end also and sort of just remind you that these are the take-home points. CDI is a therapeutic playtime and there are rules for the adults. It's completely child-guided, but the adult is the one who has to sort of follow the rules. This can be implemented in 5 to 10 minutes a day. So when I talk about maximizing your time with your children, I'm talking about literally as little as 5 minutes a day. And this is something that really like pays off. CDI is an opportunity for your child to develop confidence by leading and directing the play. Some other benefits are that it promotes the parent-child relationship. It teaches pro-social skills or some of those social skills and social interactions that we want to see more of and that we want to increase. It can be an effective part of treating anxiety, aggression, speech delays or difficulties, hyperactivity, difficulty focusing, and virtually any behavioral concern in children. The do's of CDI are to use the pride skills, and I'll introduce you to the pride skills and walk through those with you. The do nots of CDI: do not ask questions, do not lead the play or give commands, and do not criticize. And then the biggest point, if you take nothing else from this, you could start doing CDI with your children tonight. You all already have the skills you need. And that's sort of what's so wonderful about this therapeutic technique is even though there are rules for parents, this does not require intense training or a background in psychology. All this requires is that you can sort of listen to the rules and follow along with your child. So what is child-directed interaction? Child-directed interaction is a therapeutic type of play that involves rules for the adults. I want to just be real clear in that this therapeutic type of play, all the rules, this isn't meant to be necessarily like applied all throughout the day. So when you hear some of these rules, you might sort of be thinking like, well, you know, am I supposed to be doing this all the time? I hear different things about asking questions or not asking questions, but I just want to be really clear in that the rules for this are really just for this 5 to 10 minutes of playtime. It's ideal for kids who are aged or who are at a developmental level of around 2 to 7 years old. I have recommended this to parents of older children. It looks a little bit different, but the kids who benefit from it the most and the ones for who it's like super validating are usually within that age range or developmental level. Child-directed interaction is an evidence-based therapy. So that means that there's a lot of research basically that tells us we see a difference in the families who use this type of therapy and the ones who don't, and sort of improvements in their kids' behaviors. It's an effective component for treating anxiety, aggression, speech delays and difficulties, hyperactivity, difficulty focusing, and other behavioral concerns in children. I know that kind of sounds like a catch-all, but it really is that generalizable. It's such a good way to sort of demonstrate and model some of these skills, and it also provides an opportunity to draw attention and really praise those skills, which is one of the ways that we increase some of the behaviors we want to see in kids. So now these next few these are the big ones. These are the ones I really want you to focus on. So it promotes the parent-child relationship. Even if you feel like you have a great relationship with your kids, if you think about the ways that you're interacting with your kids, a lot of times the way we interact with our kids is giving them direction or asking them a lot of questions, all things that are really wonderful for promoting development in other ways, promoting their independence, promoting their sort of daily living skills, promoting their ability to think creatively or critically, all things that are wonderful. What's really nice about child-directed interaction is that this is 5 to 10 minutes a day where your child is in complete control. And I don't know about you guys, but like my kids rarely have complete control. And so for them to have this opportunity is really impactful, and it really strengthens that parent-child bond. It's an opportunity to develop pro-social skills in children. When I say pro-social skills, what I mean are the things that we want to see more of in kids. Things like sharing, using gentle hands, using a quiet voice, playing creatively, all the things that we think of when we think of like sort of nice playing or, you know, being good kids. This is an opportunity for them to practice those skills. It's also an opportunity for you to notice those skills and draw a lot of attention to demonstrate to your kids that you recognize that they're working on those things. And finally, it leads to greater self-esteem and confidence in children. This one is a really important one because a lot of times when we're thinking about sort of discipline or correcting our children, that can sometimes sort of chip away at sort of how they feel about themselves. If we're always correcting or if we're always giving direction or instruction, we're not really giving kids as much of an opportunity as we can to sort of develop their own sort of sense of selves. And so that's why this is such a nice sort of opportunity for that. Okay. Any questions or anything so far before I move on? I'll take silence as a hint to move on. Okay. So why try child-directed interaction? If you're not sold yet, I've got a few more things because I'm hoping that by the end of this, you're as bought into child-directed interaction as I am. So children learn the things that are modeled to them. When we're teaching kids manners, we're modeling for them. When they see us saying please and thank you, they're learning please and thank you. This goes both ways. We can model the good things that we want them to learn from us. We also can sometimes model the things that maybe we hope they don't learn from us. So things like yelling when we're frustrated, those are the things that they're learning from us modeling them. And so what child-directed interaction is it's an opportunity for us to model the pro-social skills that we would like our kids to develop. It's an opportunity to praise and rewards behaviors that you want to see more of and ignore the behaviors that you want to see less of. So attention in any form is a very strong motivator for children. Even negative attention, so even when we are correcting behavior or yelling at our kids or redirecting them, all of those things are attention. And when we're giving a lot of attention to any behavior, the behavior we want to see more of or the behavior we don't want to see more of, that attention is going to increase the behavior. If you think of when your kids are doing the things they're supposed to be doing, think for a minute about what you're doing in those moments. If I think of myself, when my kids are sitting quietly playing with themselves, not playing with themselves, when they're sitting playing independently or doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, when they are playing together nicely, when they're not fighting, what am I doing? I'm doing the dishes, I'm making dinner, I'm running around doing all of the other things that I don't get to do as much when they're drawing me into, having to break up fights or having to turn the TV off or having to sort of interfere when they're not doing the things that they're supposed to. So often when our kids are doing the things we want to see more of, instead of focusing on that and praising and drawing a lot of attention, we're kind of withdrawing our attention because we have to, like, we're busy. We don't have the time all the time to praise those behaviors. That's why CDI is so great, because it's an opportunity of 5 to 10 minutes of just like concerted positive attention for your child and praising those things. It focuses on strengthening the parent or caregiver and child relationship. And so I had sort of talked about this before, but I just really want to re-emphasize that when you have that strong bond, your kids want to please you more. They want to do the things that you want to see more of. And they don't want to be disappointing to you. If you think of the adults in your life when you were a child who you really wanted to please, it was adults who you had strong relationships with. So that's another reason to really, really focus on that piece. And again, it builds your child's self-esteem and self-efficacy. When I say self-efficacy, what I mean is your child's belief in their abilities to do things. And then it's just an opportunity to truly enjoy the time with your children. As a mom who's super busy and who has work and who has other responsibilities, I know for myself personally, it can be hard to sort of take a minute and just really like be in the moment with my kids. I'm always thinking about what I should be doing instead or what I should be doing to get ready for tomorrow. It's hard for me personally, and I imagine for some of you also, to take that moment and really be present and enjoy that time. And what's nice about child-directed interaction is that the rules kind of allow you to be present. You really have to focus in the moment to sort of like obey the rules of child-directed interaction. Okay. Any questions? All right. So I'm going to start to get into the rules with you. All right. So I broke the rules down into the things that you should do and the things that you shouldn't do. So let's focus first on the do's. So the first thing that I really want to emphasize are the pride skills. Pride stands for praise, reflect, imitate, describe, and enthusiasm. And I'll go into each of those and what each of those look like and sort of the rationale for each of those. The other things to do, you want to play with toys or do activities that inspire creativity and imaginative play. So there are going to be times where your kids can have screens. There are going to be times when you want to play board games or where you want to play sports or where you want to read books. All of those are wonderful, but those are not what child-directed interaction toys should be. These are toys that should inspire them to sort of be creative. Things like blocks, dolls, drawing together, magnetiles, Lincoln Logs, Play-Doh, anything really that gives you guys an opportunity to engage in imaginative play together. So here's sort of a breakdown of the pride skills. So what is praise? Praise is telling your child exactly what you like to see. When we praise behavior, that behavior increases. It shows that you're happy with your child, it improves your child's self-esteem, and the child feels good because you're drawing attention to the things you want to see more of. So some examples: great job using gentle hands. I love the way that you're drawing. Thank you so much for sharing that toy with me. The thing that I want to sort of emphasize about praise, and I'll sort of demonstrate this in the video with my son later on, but you want your praise to be super, super specific. So things like great job or I love that, those are good. What we want to do is, though, we want to make it, it's called specific labeled praise. So we want to label exactly the behavior that we are happy to be seeing. So instead of just great job, we want to say great job using your gentle hands. Instead of just saying, I love that, you want to say, I love your creativity in drawing that. Just really drawing attention to the specific behavior that you like to see. Reflecting. This is just repeating or paraphrasing what your child says to you. It allows the child to lead the conversation. It demonstrates your interest and your understanding of what your child is saying, and it improves speech and verbal communication. This is actually a really good one if you have a child who has any kind of speech delays or difficulties. The reflecting is a really nice piece for those kinds of concerns. So in practice, what this looked like is your child says, I drew a tree. And you can say right back, yes, you drew a tree. Or this monster has a green nose. Yes, the monster has a green nose. Anything that's either directly reflecting what they just said or sort of paraphrasing what they said. Imitate. This is sort of a behavior. This is just you copying what your child is doing with the toys activity or their activities. This is another one. It allows the child to lead. You're sort of following along with what they're doing. It shows your approval. It sort of tells your child that you like what they're doing and you approve of it. It makes the game fun for the child. And then it also in turn increases your child's imitating of the things that you do. And that goes back to the modeling and demonstrating that this modeling or demonstrating the skills we want our kids to be doing more of. It also teaches how to take turns. So when you give your child the ability to sort of lead or direct the play, then they in turn sort of learn that they can follow and direct and follow when you're the one who's directing the play or the instructions or whatever else. In practice, what this looks like is, you know, a child's drawing a circle on your paper and you're saying, I'm drawing circles just like you as you're drawing them. Or your child's building a tower and you're stacking your blocks up right next to them, okay? Describing. So this is just straight behavior descriptions of what your child is doing. This again lets your child lead the play. It shows that you're interested. It models good speech. So this is another one for some of those speech difficulties. Where you can sort of model exactly like how we speak and articulate words. And it keeps your child focused. It really sort of draws attention to the game that's at play. This is a good one also for children who might have some hyperactivity or difficulty focusing, where maybe sitting and playing a game even for 5 or 10 minutes is a little bit difficult. This is one I often describe to parents as sportscasting. So if you think of a sportscaster sort of just giving a play-by-play of the game, that's what you're doing here. You're not putting any judgment on what the child is doing. You're just strictly explaining exactly what you're seeing. So If your child is putting blocks on top of each other, you're not going to say, "Oh, I see that you're building a tower," because that's sort of evaluative, like you're determining that it's a tower. Instead, it's pretty down to like the basics. I see you stacking the green block on top of the blue block. Or if your child's drawing, you can say, "Oh, you drew a square." Okay. And then the last one is enthusiasm. And surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, this is one that can be a little bit difficult for parents sometimes. When you're sitting on the floor with your kid, you should have a really big smile on your face. Your body should say, "I want to be here doing this with you." You should be 100% focused. You should not have your phone. You should not have anything around you that can be distracting. This is literally just 5 to 10 minutes of your complete undivided attention given to your child. It shows your child that you're happy to play with them, and it improves the parent-child bond. Smile when you're playing. End every statement with an exclamation point. I always tell parents, if you feel like you're overdoing it, you're probably doing it right. I think one thing that I forgot to mention previously in the do's is that child-directed interaction should be one-on-one. So I know that this is sometimes challenging for parents with multiple children. It's something that I have challenges with also. We can get into that a little bit, sort of how to manage that and what to do when you have multiple children. But for child-directed interaction, it really should just be you and one child at a time. So now the things not to do. So you should not be asking questions in child-directed interaction. This one I think is one of the hardest do not rules for the parents. We are so used to engaging our children and trying to promote conversation with them. And, one of the ways that we do that is by asking questions. This is one that parents often ask me, should I not be asking my children questions in general? And I would say, no, it's fine to ask your children questions. That is a way to encourage them to speak more and to think outside the box and think critically and, sort of develop some of those skills. All of that is okay. The no questions is just for these 5 to 10 minutes of child-directed interaction. Do not give commands. Do not lead or direct the play. If your child is building, don't assume what it is. Let them lead it and tell you what it is. Don't make suggestions. Don't say, "Oh, let's do this." Those are commands. Those are things that you want to avoid. Again, outside of child-directed interaction, these things are fine. It's a way to sort of build upon playing with your kids outside of child-directed interaction. But during child-directed interaction, we are giving complete control and complete direction to our children. And then the other one is no criticism or negative talk, even to correct behavior. And this is one that, parents will often say, "Well, what if my child isn't sharing? What if my child is coloring on the table? What if, any number of behaviors are occurring?" You're just going to ignore it. You're just going to pretend that it's not happening just in these 5 to 10 minutes. I'll get into that a little bit more later on after I go through a little bit more detail about the questions, commands, and the criticism. And then things not to do with the toys. So you don't want to play with toys that limit creativity, could lead to aggressive or destructive playing, have set rules, or could draw you into correcting behavior. Screens are not good for special time. Reading books, again, wonderful to read books with your children, just not during special time. Swords and guns, not great because we don't really want to be focusing on some of that aggressive behavior during special time. Board games, again, outside of special time or child-directed interaction are wonderful, but we're not looking for rule-based games here. We're really looking for these creative, imaginative games or toys. And then glitter, when I think of glitter, that's like the thing that I could never sort of not correct. If my kid's pouring glitter all over the floor, you can bet that I'm going to be correcting that behavior. So basically just any toy, like if you know that your kid is going to be mashing Play-Doh into your kitchen table and you're not okay with that, don't play with Play-Doh. Don't do that during special time. You really want it. You don't want to get pulled into having to correct behavior during special time. Okay. So for the questions, the reasons that we don't want to ask questions is because it actually takes the lead of the play from the child and gives it back to you. It requires a response for your kids. It requires them to respond to your question. And it may seem like you're not listening or like you're disagreeing with them. Some examples of questions. Is that a tower? What color do you want? Oh, blue? Isn't that awesome? Why are you putting that doll there? You're drawing a dog? This is fun, isn't it? And so I think sometimes parents get caught up. I definitely get caught in this one sometimes. The thing that I say to parents is the first step in stopping asking questions is to catch that you're asking those questions. And so a lot of times when parents are starting to do child-directed interaction, this doesn't feel natural. This does not feel like a natural way of interacting with your children. And so it can be really hard, but if you're noticing that you're asking a lot of questions, that's the first step. That's the first step to them being able to stop it. Commands. This is any direction or anything that leads the narrative of the play. So the reasons it leads play, it can also initiate conflict, which we really don't want to do here. We don't want to introduce anything that's going to initiate conflict. And so the reason that it might initiate conflict is if you say, oh, let's build a tower, and your child didn't want to be building a tower, then all of a sudden you're going to sort of be butting heads. It's sort of a power struggle, which you didn't intend. That was not supposed to be the purpose of CDI. Some examples are, let's build a tall tower. Here, use the blue crayon. The dolls are going to the store. Hand me that car. Please use gentle hands. Look at this. That please use gentle hands I put in specifically as an example because that's a behavior correction. You're telling them what to do. And so if your child is hitting or doing something with their hands, that's a little bit aggressive, that might normally be behavior that we want to correct. But during special time or child-directed interaction, we don't. We want to just let those behaviors go and ignore them. And then the last one is no criticism or negative talk. And this is anything that's expressing disapproval of your child's attributes, or your behaviors. This also includes sarcasm. Sarcasm is not allowed in child-directed interaction. It's just not sort of a kind way of interacting with your child in this type of sort of circumstance. The reasons are that it gives attention to negative behavior. And again, what we're really trying to do is ignore those negative behaviors and give a lot of attention or praise to the behaviors we want to see more of. It can lower your child's self-esteem, and it actually increases the negative social behaviors by reinforcing them. So by drawing a lot of attention to the things we don't want to see, we're actually going to increase those things that we don't want to see. Some examples are, that building is too tall, it's going to fall. That is not the right color for a tree. Stop being silly, don't color on the table. No thank you, that wasn't nice, or anything else that's sarcastic. So I want to draw your attention, and I want to focus a little bit on, like, how do you address disruptive behaviors that occur during special time? A lot of parents often say, well, what if something comes up? For any behavior that's sort of mildly disruptive, anything that's just kind of annoying or obnoxious. This is things like taking a toy out of your hands, or not sharing, or kind of speaking to you unkindly. You want to just completely withdraw the attention and ignore that behavior. You can sort of focus on your own playing and just sort of do your own thing next to your child and make it clear that you are not giving attention when they're doing those things. As soon as that behavior stops, as soon as your child is using calm hands or gentle hands, as soon as your child says something like, please give that to me, anything like that, you want to swoop in and sort of shower them with those pride skills. I love the way you're using your gentle hands. Thank you so much for speaking calmly to me. You are doing such an awesome job sharing your toys. Really look for those moments of when the sort of disruptive behavior stops and the good behavior begins, and then focus on that. For any aggressive or destructive behaviors, if your child is aggressively hitting you or kicking you or biting, anything like that, if your child is throwing toys across the room or destroying things, the CDI is over. You're ending that session right there. And it's not angry, it's not yelling at them. It's a very calm, you know what? It's time to end special time. We'll try again tomorrow, or we'll try again in a little bit. And that's it. The reason, so, and I think I didn't emphasize this as much in the beginning. Ideally, child-directed interaction is something that should be happening on a daily basis, every day. And the goal of that and the reason for that is that if you have to end CDI because your child is engaging in some of these destructive or aggressive behaviors, there's always an opportunity tomorrow. This is not contingent upon, this isn't, special time is not something that kids can earn. It's not something that should be taken away. It's something that they, in an ideal world, should be getting every day just because. And so it also sets up these boundaries. I think I actually get into this. So why? So ignoring the behaviors you don't want to see and praising the behaviors you do want to see helps your child to learn the difference between your responses to positive behaviors and the negative behaviors you don't want to see as much. In the long term, it reduces attention-seeking behaviors. So in the moment, and ignoring, I could do a whole other session on sort of behavior management and ignoring, maybe there will be something like that in the future, but in the immediate future, oftentimes what happens when you're ignoring behaviors you don't want to see is that they actually increase. We call this an extinction burst. And what that means is when your child realizes they're not getting your attention from behavior that used to, so let's say screaming or even whining. In my house, we're going through a really big whining phase. If I'm ignoring the whining, then what my child's going to do first is they're going to whine even louder, even more, and even more obnoxiously to try and pull me back into that. If I'm consistent and I hold my ground and continue to ignore that, what they're going to learn is that's not getting the response that they want. Ideally, when they're using a calm voice or using a nice speaking voice, that's something I'm going to praise and respond to immediately. And what they're going to learn is that they're not getting what they want when they're whining. They are definitely getting what they want when they're using a nice voice. They're going to continue to use their nice voice and the whining is eventually going to decrease. But that's why I kind of mentioned that it's in the long term. It can in the immediate future get worse before it gets better. And then the last thing is that it teaches limit setting. And that's sort of what I was getting at. When you have child-directed interaction every single day, then you're demonstrating these boundaries. You're going to get this every day. But if you do these behaviors, if you hit me, if you're aggressive, if you're throwing your toys, it's ending and you'll try again tomorrow. Okay? Any questions or comments before I give a little demonstration? Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't able to unmute for some reason.
Oh,
What do you do if you have a child that does not like imaginative play, but is very structured, likes to play the board games? If they're building something, they want to follow the instructions and they really struggle with even drawing. It has to be, something concrete or, following instructions. Where do you go with that?
yeah, I think it's a great idea, or sorry, a great question. So what do you do if your child, if the unstructuredness of special time is too difficult for them, I think is what you're asking. I would say that that's a kid who actually would really benefit from something like special time because it's an opportunity to develop those skills. So there are a lot of reasons that a child might prefer a structured game or rules or, a coloring book to color in the lines or something like that. Special time can be an opportunity to sort of praise when they're doing something unstructured. So if I were working with a child or if I were working with parents who had a child who was super structured like that, something that I might recommend is maybe starting off with even just 1 or 2 minutes of special time and not even starting. Like for some kids, 5 minutes might be too long. Kids who have trouble focusing, kids who this play isn't super rewarding or sort of validating for them, it's difficult for them. Maybe just start with 1 or 2 minutes of the unstructured play, and I would be praising the entire time. I love the way you're just building without a plan in mind. I love the way you're free drawing that and really praise and draw a lot of positive attention to the behavior you want to see more of. In this case, the behavior you want to see more of is sort of flexibility. And so looking for those moments when your child is being flexible. It's also an opportunity for you to model being flexible for your child. It's a nice opportunity for you to kind of color all over the place, or draw a tower, or sorry, build a tower and then knock it down, and sort of demonstrate this flexibility and like, these things happen and this is how we sort of move on from them, rather than sort of the rigidity of some structured play that some kids do prefer. Any other questions? I can also start the demonstration and then open it up to questions after that if you guys would like. Okay, maybe we'll do that.
I have a question for you from Facebook.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How do you introduce or prepare for CDI with your child? How do you explain it to them? She has daughters that are 2 and 4 years old.
Perfect. Oh, those are such perfect ages for this. That's a great question. When I sort of set it up for my kids, the first time that I did it, I sort of said, we're going to practice something called special time. I gave a few choices of different toys. So I think that's something else that I forgot to mention early on. You want your child to be the one who's choosing the toys. So you don't want to come in with a bucket of blocks and say like, all right, we're going to build right now. But you do kind of want to direct them to toys that they can play. So when you see the video, I'm going to show you. I started off and I offered my son, do you want to play with Magnetiles tonight, or do you want to play with your Mario guys? He said both, so we played with both. I also recommend, sometimes it kind of depends on your child and it depends on how things work for you. I always set a timer for my kids when I'm doing it, because it is time limited, and I want them to sort of understand that and be able to transition out of special time when it's done. A lot of kids really like special time and they would like it to go on longer. That's another reason to be doing it every day. So when it ends, you can sort of say, you did a great job tonight. We're going to play it again tomorrow. We're going to do special time again tomorrow. So I sort of, just called it. I said, okay, we're going to try special time, and that's it. And then we just sort of go into it.
What do you do when special time is over and now you're dealing with a tantrum every single time? And this is even after you've done it for a week, 2 weeks, and it's still consistent, that timer goes off, the tantrum starts, sometimes toys are being thrown.
Yeah.
What do you do next?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, some things that I'm sort of gonna make some assumptions about. Probably a kid who is having a hard time, and even after a few weeks is still not used to the transition, is probably a kid who has trouble with transitions in general. Or a kid who maybe needs more structure and routine. Some things that I would recommend are sort of really framing what's going to happen, like do a lot of preparation. Okay, we're going to do special time. It's only going to be for 10 minutes. I'm going to set a timer. Do you want to push the button, or do you want me to push the button? I would give as much choice and as much sort of autonomy as you can, to sort of give as much control as you can. That's something that can be helpful. And another thing that I might consider doing is like a visual schedule to help prepare for that transition. This is also a time where I would, draw a lot of attention. Anytime your child is having an easier time transitioning out of special time, that's an opportunity to praise. I love the way you moved on to that next activity so calmly. Thank you so much. It's another time, it's something that I would try and really focus on, just generally outside of special time, just throughout the day, draw a lot of attention and praise to transitioning calmly in general. Transitioning calmly can be a skill. It's possible that after a few weeks, your child might still have a tough time transitioning. At that point, there's maybe some other intervention that would be warranted. At some point, maybe I would say, you know, if special time is just too much and the transition is just so hard that maybe it's not worth the benefits that come from child-directed interaction, that's a possibility, but I would probably go to that as a very, very last resort.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. So I'm going to do a demonstration. I had hopes of doing a demonstration live with my child, but as it's, what time is it? Yeah, 8:45. My 5-year-old's unpredictable around now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a video instead. Okay. Can you guys see my video? All right. Make it a little bit bigger. Oopsies. No, I just lost it. Hold on one sec. Sorry. Okay, here we go. All right. It's a little bit hard to hear, so I may pause it once in a while and just draw your attention to some different things.
Okay, now we'll start building the home. We just need squares.
All right, we're going to start
I'll
building the home.
build squares. I'll build Bowser's.
You're going to build Bowser's home. So that's a reflection. He just said he's going to build Bowser's home, and I just reflected that right back to him.
All right, sorry, I don't know if you caught that, but what I was saying in the video is that that's a behavioral reflection. He said he's going to build Bowser's home, and I reflected right back to him, oh, you're going to build Bowser's home. So that's a reflection.
Oh, I see you putting the red magnet tile on the side.
It doesn't matter which one you put it on.
Okay, it doesn't.
Okay, so that I see you're putting that red tile on the side. That's a behavioral description. I am just describing exactly what he's doing. There's no evaluation. I'm not saying he's building a house. I'm not sort of making any judgment. I'm just saying exactly what he's doing. He's putting a red tile on the side.
Which one you put it on? He's building his magnet.
Okay, so real quick, what I want to sort of bring your attention to there, he just took a toy right out of my hand. I was sort of handing it to him in the moment. It's not exactly the nicest way that he could have taken it out of my hand. If we were just playing and this wasn't special time, that might be something that I would correct. But because this is special time, I'm not correcting that. I am just ignoring that behavior.
And so I'm building mine right next to him. That's imitating.
And then again, if you didn't hear that, I'm imitating his behavior. He's building his squares. I'm building my squares just like he is.
Oh, I see you put Mario right in the middle of that one.
That's why.
That's a behavioral description. That's me just describing exactly what he's doing. Sportscasting.
And again, if you didn't catch that, more behavioral description, I'm just sportscasting. I'm describing exactly what I'm seeing.
Smile and enthusiastic and excited to play. Yavi, I love how creative you're being with your building.
Okay, so that right there, that's specific labeled praise. I'm not just telling him he's doing a nice job. I'm not just saying great job. I'm saying great job. I love how creative you're being with your building. You're really tying the positive praise, the good job piece with exactly the behavior that you like what you're seeing.
Praise, that's praising his creativity. And you notice super specific. I said, I like the way you are being super creative and tying that praise to exactly what he's doing that I want to see more of.
I think I'm gonna build this one. So we can get that.
We are going to build that one higher.
I thought it was gonna be too high for it to be for it not. I thought it was too high, but it's not.
Oh, okay. You thought it was too high, but it's not.
One is a bit.
So if you can hear my daughter in the background. She was luckily with another caregiver at the moment. But this again, just like, and we can talk more if people have questions about like sort of how to get that one-on-one time. If you don't have another caregiver present, or sort of ways that you can sort of work around that. But the goal really is that this should be one-on-one undivided attention with whichever child you're doing child-directed interaction with in that moment.
Some more squares, and we took out some triangles.
That was a behavioral description and a reflection. So he said he's taking out more squares. I said, oh, you're taking out more squares. And then I sort of described that he's also taking out triangles.
Well, it's a behavioral description. I love the way you're using gentle hands allowed you to build.
That's another praise. I love the way you're using gentle hands. That's a nice, so when you're thinking about praise and the behavior that you want to see more of, a lot of times I think we think of sort of the behavior that we want to see less of. So if my child was an aggressive child or was too rough, then using gentle hands is praising the behavior we want to see more of. You want to think of the opposite of the behavior you don't want to see. If he was a child who had difficulty focusing or couldn't sit still, what I would be praising is, you're doing such a nice job, you sitting calmly or playing quietly. Just really drawing attention to the behavior you want to see increase, as opposed to identifying the behavior you don't want to see more of. Okay, I'm going to go back to my presentation. Okay, so if you noticed, this is not a supernatural way of interacting with your child. In the beginning, when you're first starting to do child-directed interaction, it feels weird, it feels unnatural. You're not sort of just joining in with the imaginative play, like you're really following this set of prescriptive rules in a way that doesn't feel comfortable. This isn't a normal way that we interact with people typically. And so all of that is okay. The most important part in the beginning is really just being enthusiastic and giving it as much effort as you can in that 5 to 10 minutes. And when I say 5 to 10 minutes, I literally mean 5 to 10 minutes. Like I put a 10-minute timer on my watch, and as soon as that timer is done, special time's over, we'll do it again tomorrow. So when I talk about maximizing your time with your kids, what I'm really saying is like how to get the most bang for your buck in a really short period of time in a way that that's then going to pay off. When I'm doing child-directed interaction with my kids, their whole demeanor changes. The nights that I do child-directed interaction, admittedly, I'm not doing it every night, but when things are tough, when my kids are having a tough time, if their behaviors are, you know, sort of worse than they had been over the last few weeks, it's the first thing that I go back to try and do every day. And I'm telling you, the nights that I do it, the rest of the evening goes smoothly. Your kids just really want to please you and want to get along with you and comply with the things that you're asking so much more when they feel validated and sort of have their play imitated and described and sort of validated for them. Any questions about anything that you saw or anything that I did, anything that I've talked about tonight?
I have another question from Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are snacks ever involved during play in special time? Is that something that is too structured or something that is discouraged?
Snacks, like eating snacks?
Yep.
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know that I've ever thought about that before. I mean, I don't see why not. I think it would be fine to be eating snacks while you're doing special time. The only thing that I would caution is one, Special times, I mean, it can be at a table, but like the way that you saw me do it was like sitting on the floor. It should really be in like your child's space. And so if you're okay with having a snack on the floor or sort of, you know, wherever you're playing, that's fine. If it's something that like makes a lot of crumbs or something that can spill or anything that would pull you into sort of correcting behavior, if you're going to be saying something like, don't crumble up those crackers or don't squeeze that juice box or anything like that, I would say no, I wouldn't have it as part of it. But otherwise, if it's not something that would pull you into those things, I think it's totally fine. I wouldn't like draw a ton of attention to it. Unless you have feeding concerns, in which case maybe you would want to praise like, oh, I'm so proud of you for trying a bite of that new food or something like that. But that's sort of wading into like different therapeutic territory.
She responded by saying that her kids eat snacks constantly, and that's why she asks.
Amazing, amazing. Yes, I appreciate that. I have snacking children. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to, as long as you wouldn't get pulled into sort of like correcting behavior around the snacking. It's also a nice chance that they're sharing their snacks or if they're cleaning up, like there, you know, there are definitely opportunities there for praising and sort of identifying some of that. So I think it could be fine.
Would you like to give some ideas for those who might not have an extra set of hands to watch other children at home?
Yes.
So I'm a parent of two, and my husband works usually when I'm home. So how can I do one-on-one time with one of my kids while the other one is also needing my attention?
Yes. So this is a nice opportunity for me to sort of give my caveat and sort of like acknowledge my background and sort of my philosophy, which is that whatever is good for the parent or whatever is sort of good for the entire family, that's what's good for the individual child. So if you are a single parent or if you have a partner who works a lot and you're often home alone and you've got multiple kids, I will either do special time with my older son when my daughter is sleeping. So either during nap time or he stays up a little bit later than she does. So after she goes to bed, again, this is 5 to 10 minutes. So it can be super, super brief. I have also stuck my daughter in front of Sesame Street or Peppa Pig so that she can be distracted for 5 to 10 minutes while I give my undivided attention to my son. We could definitely get into a conversation about screen time recommendations, but I do think that sometimes if that's something that you need, because otherwise your child who genuinely needs that one-on-one attention is not going to get it, then maybe that's something that, you know, that just has to happen. So yeah, anytime that you can sort of occupy another child in whatever way is good. The iPad, if TV is necessary, if your child will play independently on their own, that's great. My 2-year-old isn't quite there yet, which is why either she's watching Peppa Pig or she's napping.
Besides for blocks and coloring, what are other suggestions for toys that can bring out your child's imaginative side?
Yeah, great question. So some of the ones I like Play-Doh. If you're a parent who's going to get upset about Play-Doh being mashed in or mixing of the colors, that's a big one that parents get upset about sometimes. Don't do Play-Doh. Don't do it if it's going to pull you into correcting behavior. I think I said Magnetiles, little people like little dolls, kitchen like play food. Um, Play animals, baby dolls. I'm trying to think of any of other ones that we use sometimes. My son has these like little figures. We do superheroes sometimes. Though that sometimes gets into like aggressive play and everyone's fighting and I'm like, okay, ignore, but that's the whole game. So, you know, it's hard. And I'm trying to think what else. Cars, we do a lot of cars or locomotives, trains, anything like that. Basically anything that you can sort of be creative with.
what do you do when your child only wants to play with one toy? Like, let's say your child wants to play house, but they only bring one baby into the game and they don't want you to have any other baby. They don't want you to do anything, but kind of just watch them
Yeah, yeah.
or watch them play.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say I would try to encourage the parent to bring their own baby doll along or bring another doll. But if the child's resistant to that, then I would instead try and maybe focus on some of the verbal pieces, some of the praising the behavior you want to see more of, reflecting, describing. And then as soon as your child offers you an opportunity to play, or as soon as your child shares a toy with you, you want to praise, praise, praise that. Thank you so much for sharing with me. I love the way you shared your baby doll with me. I love playing right along with you. And really try and draw a lot of attention to that. One of the things, and Ali, I appreciate your questions because I think one of the things that you're sort of identifying is like, what do you do if your child doesn't have some of these pro-social skills that we're trying to teach? And I would say that's exactly the point of child-directed interaction. We don't expect that all kids coming into this are going to have that set of skills. That's why we want to do this every day. And that's why this really is an opportunity to develop some of those skills and for us to model some of those things for our kids, so that they can learn and develop through play.
I have another question for you.
Go for it. I love it.
How can you, how would you convince your older children, 7 to 9? I know
Mhm.
this mostly works with children that fall into that,
Mhm.
younger age range. But if you've got older kids, how would you convince them to get on board with something like this? Special time doesn't sound so special for a 7-year-old or a 9-year-old
Yeah.
sometimes.
Mhm. I probably wouldn't. I would probably do something else with older kids because at some point, developmentally, it is appropriate. I don't have kids who are quite at this age group yet, but maybe parents who have some older kids can sort of let me know if I'm correct here. But at some point, it's not so validating and positive to like be playing with your parent. At some point, like developmentally, that's something that kids do age out of, and that's appropriate. Like we expect that of them. That's a developmental milestone. And so if your child is resistant to it because of the age, like if they're aging out of special time, I wouldn't try and force it. There are other things that you can do with older children. You can do activities with them. But at some point your kids get old enough where when you're reflecting right back at them, they're like, why are you saying that? Like, don't talk to me that way. Like, what, you're being so weird. And I think when you're hitting that, you're starting to age out of it. It's not going to be as reinforcing and as powerful when your kid is starting to get there developmentally.
I have another question from Facebook, and
Excellent.
I know that we touched upon it a little earlier, but the question is, how do you manage to split one-on-one time as a single parent working full time with
Yeah.
a bunch of children? Um, and when you have children in multiple age groups, some as young as 4 or 5 and all the way up to teenagers.
Yeah.
So how do you manage to split the time? And also, I mean, does it get harder for the teenagers to see you having that one-on-one time with the younger ones? How do you split that up in a nice, pretty package for the whole family?
Yeah. It's a great question. And I think I probably don't have a super simple or super satisfying answer to that. I mean, I think that what you're hitting on is a huge challenge for working parents of multiple children, not to mention single parents, single working parents of multiple children across the age range. Um, what I do recommend with parents is, as much as it's possible, to try and, if you're giving one-on-one time to one child, try and balance it with something positive for the other child. Typically, when I'm recommending child-directed interaction in like a therapeutic context, I'm working with a family with a child who has some kind of unique needs or challenges. And one of the things that I often tell parents is that not all children are the same. Some children have higher needs than their siblings. And I think sometimes as parents, we think we want to be fair and we want to be, sort of equal with our kids. But sometimes what our kids need is not equal attention from us. Sometimes some of our kids need more attention and their siblings need less attention. And so I think it's challenging. It's challenging. You could be spending every night of the week working with a different child and spending giving undivided attention to one of the children while the other ones are sort of, distracted or doing their own thing. And, that is challenging. I would say as much as you can with the older ones, with the teenagers, with the ones who are sort of aged out of special time, what I would say is try and meet them where they're at. Try and just do something positive with them, whatever that might mean. That could be playing a game, that could be doing like sort of adult coloring, that could be, just sitting on the couch and watching what they want to watch. I think kids often appreciate the autonomy that comes along with child-directed interaction and the ability to lead. And so I would say that is something that I do think is transferable to older kids. If you're all sitting around one night, maybe it's your teenager's night to pick what everybody watches on TV, or maybe it's your older child's opportunity to pick what everyone has for dinner or what everyone has for dessert, or an opportunity to give them some control and some autonomy in a way that sort of like, goes with what the whole family needs. But that's really challenging because I think sometimes as a parent, if you also don't have the time to sort of like give yourself what you need and you're always attending to what your kids needs, that's not good for anyone either. So, finding that balance between doing the things for your kids and giving them the choices and them the autonomy, with also balancing what you need and sort of how to fill your own cup up so that you can sort of pour into everyone else's cups.
Love it. And our poster, Yafa, who's asking our questions, she's giving you a big thank you and some hearts over here.
Excellent. It's a great question.
If you have a very large family, would you recommend splitting up the nights instead of doing it every single night for every child, going back to back, but more like, 2 kids tonight, 2 kids the next night, and so on and so forth?
Definitely. Yeah. And this sort of goes back to like where I'm coming from is like what's good for the family is good for everyone else. If you are spending, if you have 5 kids, then what, 5 to 10 minutes ends up being an hour of your night every night, and no one's getting anything done and nothing's happening. And you're spending all this time giving all of your kids the 10 minutes that they need. And if that's not helpful and that's not working for your family, then yeah, absolutely. Splitting it up and doing it, I think. And I often say, like, doing it every day, that's the gold standard, that's ideal. But that's not realistic for so many families, and that's okay. I think whatever feels realistic and feels manageable, doing any amount of child-directed interaction is going to be beneficial. So even if it's only like 1 or 2 nights a week, even if it's 1 night every couple weeks, all of that is great and all of that is fine. And as long as like your family is getting what they need and you're getting what you need, that's what's going to pay off. That's what's going to ultimately benefit your kids. All right. Any other questions, comments?
Chelsea, this was a fantastic presentation. I really appreciate everything you shared.
Thank you so much. Or do you guys feel like you could go out and do it? I don't know. I can't see everyone. I see like a couple nods. I don't know if I'm getting any thumbs up on Facebook or anything. Excellent. Amazing.
You've got thumbs up on Facebook. You've got heart.
Excellent. I'm glad.
In fact, this is great. Thank you.
Excellent. So I'm going to just go back to I did my demonstration. Just want to reiterate some of these take-home messages and just also say, like, I'm available. If anyone has any questions, you can reach out to me. Allie, you're welcome to share my my email address, and people should feel comfortable reaching out. I'm happy to sort of chat and answer any questions that may come up later on. But just to sort of reiterate, child-directed interaction is a therapeutic playtime. You've got rules for the adults. It can be implemented in as little as 5 to 10 minutes a day. It's an opportunity for your child to develop confidence by leading and directing the play. It promotes the parent-child relationship, teaches pro-social skills, and can be an effective part of treating a variety of issues. Do use the pride skills. Do not ask questions, lead the play, or criticize. And again, I hope that after sort of hearing about this, you sort of feel confident in your own skills that you could go right on tonight and do this with your kids. You're 100% qualified and already have everything you need to do it. And then these are just some references and resources. And, you know, again, like if you're interested, I'm happy to share some of these with you if that would be helpful at all. All right. I'm gonna just stop my share. All right. Allie, thank you so much for the opportunity. It was really such a pleasure to present on a topic. This is one of my favorite therapeutic techniques, and I could talk about this for days.
Thank you. Everything you gave over was amazing. I'm so excited to take the new things that I've learned tonight and to utilize it with my family to test out some new playing strategies, and lots of praise, lots and lots of positive praise.
Yeah, I always sort of go back to that. If nothing else, just praise. Just tell your kids they're doing a great job.
And I want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. If you're watching on Facebook, just so you know, you'll be able to watch it again since we're live. You could always go back and rewatch it from the beginning. If you have any questions, I've linked Chelsea in this post so you can be able to reach her that way as well. Thank you again for coming and asking your questions and being a part of this program tonight. Our next program, we are going to be taking a little break because of all the holidays. So our next program won't be until January 13th. But stay tuned. I've got a lineup of great speakers coming for you guys about lots of amazing different topics. And again, thank you, Chelsea, so very much.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure.
Have a great night, everybody.